Trello is great for medium or small to medium and even sometimes large teams, especially for teams that are maybe not in the same building or office, maybe as far as being remote. If you have a remote team of many sizes, it could be small, could be large, it makes it very easy to monitor progress on multiple projects from a macro level. And then also if you need to go in and micromanage on a micro level, depending on what it is, what the task is, and what the specific milestone of the task is. As far as people that that Trello is not good for, it really depends on what the team setup is. Trello can be used in many different ways, so there's really there's really nobody that it can't be used for because it's so customizable. I used it with a videographer out in Washington, and we did it, and she had a whole setup with cards and passing things along, and it was this whole thing. And then I used it with another agency team that had a completely different setup that was more of a stack base, and they were able to customize it to their liking as well. So it's really just a matter of how creative you can get using the cards and using Trello itself to make your processes and flows a little easier. My official title is the Chief Button Pusher, but in reality, it's a fun title, but in reality, I manage a social media ad content production studio. So Chief Button Pusher makes it a lot easier to say and understand, but I manage a production studio that works and creates social ads for agencies and direct-to-consumer e-com brands. I use Trello on a multitude of different levels. A lot of times agencies will already have Trello implemented and then basically put me into their flow. So then from there, my experience with Trello makes it easy for me to be able to kind of just integrate into their flow, into their process. And then for other clients, I will often set up Trello when there are multiple assets and multiple projects that we're working with. And then we basically have a lot of different milestones that we have to hit on many different things. So I will set up Trello on a project basis. So it'd be for the one client, and then each project will have its own separate card and its own separate thing. And then each one of those has its own separate checkbox, basically milestones that have to be hit in order to complete the tasks. Some of them relying on me, some of them relying on the agency, but either way, everyone involved has knowledge and awareness and perception of what's going on within the projects. I didn't really choose Trello. Trello kind of chose me. I've used everything from Salesforce and that was archaic at the time for what we were using it for. It was a little bit nuts to be able to use that for what we were using. I've used Google Spreadsheets. I've used a lot of different things. And then one of my videographer clients used Trello and brought me into the fold, and I kind of started tinkering with it and really learning how it could be used. And then from then on, I didn't use anything else. That was kind of what I decided to use moving forward when it came to working with that client. And then as I was bringing on my own clients, I decided to implement Trello to make my task management easier and make it so everything was visible and people weren't asking me questions mid-process, and they didn't need to constantly pester and need to know things. Same with me, so I didn't need to know things. Everybody was there. We didn't have to have a weird email strings. Everything was visible and actionable. And those were the two key things that I decided to keep using Trello with, is everything visual and actionable, meaning anyone can go in, see where everything is and what different levels and different processes and steps that everything was at, and make decisions based on the information instead of having to pester somebody that maybe knew that but didn't have time to answer it. Everyone could utilize it and become more independent and more efficient and productive. Before Trello, I was using a multitude of different things. Some of them were brought to me by some of my partners and clients. Some of them I was researching myself. One client had used Salesforce, which was a monster of a tool to be used just for task management, and that's all they were using it for, so it was a waste of money on their part. It wasn't my money, but still, it was just annoying. We used Google Sheets with checkboxes to check the little things as everything went along, so that way there was some sort of visual representation, but again, very archaic and very just not efficient. And then from there, other than, the email threads and how we look in, and then just useless questions and pointless, reaching out and double checking and just became, it was chaos. It really was. Trello gave me the opportunity, once I learned how to use it, to be able to, again, take all the information that everybody on the team needed and put it into one place, organized and sectioned off, so that way the person knew where they needed to look for what the information they needed and be able to take action. Onboarding with Trello was pretty simple. I was onboarded at first when I first started using it, and my client that I was working with, she made it very simple. Just be basically like, this is how I do it. This is what this does. It was very easy. It's very what they call WYSIWYG in a design world. It's very, what you see is what you get. There wasn't coding. There wasn't like a learning curve for the most part. It was just kind of figuring out what buttons did what. And then once I figured that out, it became very easy for me to be able to dictate what I needed from people and how to be able to use Trello. As I onboarded people, it became very easy. Just by using it, I was able to develop my own onboarding process. There's a lot of support, at least there used to be. I'm not sure after they got bought out, but when they were originally going, they had a lot of support and a lot of really good articles to be able to help people figure it out. But the cool thing about Trello is that once you figure out the basic foundation, you can kind of make it your own and kind of get it really creative with what it can do. But the basic stuff, you can mostly just kind of get on there, figure it out. You can't really break anything. So you just start pushing buttons and see what happens and then kind of figure it out for yourself. But there are support things to help you out. But for the most part, it's a very easy onboarding process. My advice for anyone looking to implement Trello into their process is to try it. That's really the best way to do it. I know that prior to them being bought out and purchased and acquired by Landison, there was a lot more features and a lot better support, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that it's still not functional. And it still might be a good fit for your process in your company. So it really depends on what you want to use. There are others out there. There's Asana. There's a bunch of different ones that I can't think of off the top of my head. And again, if Google Sheets are your thing, go for it. You know what I mean? But try it. That's the best way I can see, or that's the best advice I can give. Like I said, it's very, very hands-on. It's very easy to use and it's very visual. So it's like I said, the support's a little lacking these days, but if you can figure it out and don't need that, then Trello might be for you. But again, my best advice, if you're thinking about trying Trello, is to absolutely just try it and see what happens and see if it's a good fit for you.